Crash Bandicoot got off to a good start for the jump to the PlayStation 2, as well as the Xbox and GameCube with Wrath of Cortex. But things got crazier when Crash Twinsanity for the PS2 and Xbox came out in 2004. But does it make a good game? Well, let's take a look.
Trick or treat! Trick or treat!
Following the events of Wrath of Cortex, Dr. Cortex returned from his icy prison to Insanity Island, paralyzes Coco, then disguises himself and lures Crash to a bay where they have a fight, including a Mecha Bandicoot. After the fight and escaping the caverns, Crash and Cortex are confronted by two strange bird mutants called the Evil Twins. They reveal that they came from the 10th dimension and plan on destroying Insanity Island. Cortex comes to the idea that he and Crash must travel the island in search of the crystals needed to power up the Psychotron, which will allow them to travel to the 10th dimension. While the story isn't as intense as Wrath of Cortex, but following the story will bound to leave you laughing, as the writing is just comedic gold. The jokes and line deliveries are done tremendously, that it feels like a cartoon, like maybe Looney Tunes.
My airship! Without it, we're stranded! Tie it to something secure, I said! Hurry, Nina, or you'll miss the bus!
But when it leads to gameplay, it definitely works.
Oh! Ow! I love my airship! It's the only way to fly!
Hey, so this is how the rich and the ugly fly!
Crash Twinsanity ditches the warp room formula that was used in the previous games, and goes to a form of free roaming, even though the linear path formula reappears at times. There are the standard things with the Wumpa fruit collecting and the extra life for every 100 Wumpa. The game's plot is progressed by the levels, as crystals play a minor role, but collecting them still remains a part of the game. Crash's controls remain relatively the same, but he gets some new moves such as the slide dash and can roll things such as balls. Just like Jak and Daxter, there are times that Crash would pair up with a secondary character, and that is Cortex. With the Crash Cortex pair, the controls allow Crash to abuse Cortex, with moves such as using his giant head as a hammer. So that's where my hammer head went. Anyways, Crash can throw Cortex to a distance where he can activate switches, as well as using the spin attack while holding onto him, riding Cortex as a snowboard, and the roller brawl. There's also certain occasions where Crash would have to clear a path for Cortex in something called Dock-a-Mock, and at certain points, Cortex will become playable. His gameplay is a shooter with his ray gun and has limited ammo, but he can get more ammo by running into crates. Nina, Cortex's niece, is also playable. She uses her mechanical hands for fighting and also wall climbing. But it's sad that Cortex and Nina were underused. Not counting the final boss, Cortex has one level and a boss, while Nina has one level and no boss. Plus, I was disappointed that Coco or even Crunch wasn't playable at all. Oh well. There are a lot more bosses than the previous games, which turns out to be pretty enjoyable. Twinsanity also introduces a rotating camera, which is very helpful, especially with platforming. Speaking of controls, the game's controls work really well. They're well responsive, and all the moves are executed easily. However, the masks were a huge downgrade.
My duty is to protect you.
You lie! It was nice that you get one every time you restarted from a checkpoint, but they don't protect you from the nitro, even when you are invincible, and I use that term very loosely. Gems also return as they are hidden in the levels. By collecting one, they will unlock concept arts and extras, but some can be a major pain in the ass. I also thought that Nina was annoying at times, mostly because she can't do a double jump, which makes dying easier. Even with the frustration, Crash Twinsanity's gameplay is rather enjoyable.
Coming through! Ladies? Excuse me, madam. Are those real? Mother?
Anyhow, we've been taking in the sights of Insanity Island here. Nice digs.
Visually, Crash Twinsanity looks really good. The versatility ranges from the sunsetting insanity to the creepy, eerie darkness of the Academy of Evil is not only colorful, but blends in so well. However, the design of some levels are very nasty, which makes dying in this game very easy and extremely cheap. Plus, if you fall a good amount of feet from a high platform, you will lose a life. But the main culprit is definitely the placements of Nitro and TNT, which even when the camera is at a good angle, if you trigger an explosion, you will die. Other than a few cheap design in certain levels, the overall presentation is pretty good.
This is the part where you run away screaming.
Crash Twinsanity has one of my personal favorite soundtracks. For a game with goofy slapstick comedy, the music really fits in the scenery of the levels, and also turned out to be very catchy, as it ranges from upbeat and catchy tunes, to rockin' tunes, to even epic tension tunes. Why don't I just shut up for a moment and show some examples? Sound effects has changed dramatically. The only sound effect that returns are these. Most of the moves Crash does has a new sound effect. In terms of the voice cast, they do a good job. But like the story, the comedy is all on the writing. Like I said before, the jokes and delivery are just spot on and bound will leave you laughing.
We are masters of the infinite dimensions, with power over reality itself, and riches beyond imagination.
Riches?
Riches? What's wrong with you? Always bringing up the riches!
But the show stealer is Dr. Cortex, voiced by Lex Lane, who now shows a comedic side, unlike the sinister side in the previous game.
I'm stuck! The greatest evil scientist in the world! Stuck in a pipe. How could things get any worse?
But I honestly felt that Uka Uka sounded a bit forced when delivering his lines.
Who has released me from my icy tomb?
Come to think of it, that kinda sounds familiar.
Now you will feel my wrath!
Nah. So bottom line, music is great, sound effects, while different, but still works, and the voice cast is really good.
Wait, I think I remember now. The way it happened.
Crash Twinsanity is a really enjoyable and hilarious game. If it hadn't been for some bad game designs in certain levels, it might have been just as good as Warped, but it's still a good game. The gameplay truly shines with its good controls and camera. The story is really good and the writing is hysterical. While it did have its fair share of frustration, it isn't enough to break the enjoyment factor. Crash Twinsanity is indeed, in my mind, the best Crash game on the PlayStation 2 and Xbox.
Yeah, whatever. Skip to the good bit.
Okay, jeez. So under the new metal scoring board, Oh, you son of a... Okay, let's try this again. So my metal rating for Crash Twinsanity is... a gold medal. yeah, and to end things off on a funny note...
Initiate missile attack!
You know what they say, the more the merrier. You know what they say, the more the merrier. You know what they say, the more the merrier. You know what they say, the more the merrier.
Nee, ain't all you stinker.